What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel for another 1/6 scale figure review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Hot Toys Darth Maul 2.0 or the MMS 748. Yes, guys, this is an MMS release, not a DX like the original, so you don't get that special packaging, unfortunately. But what are you going to do? I want to give a massive shout out, though, to Jeremy Casa from Plastic Hero Collectibles for providing this figure for the purposes of this review. He provides his services for an absolute ton of different 1/6 scale figures, from newly in-stock stuff, day one stuff in Hong Kong, to old, long sold out stuff, and sometimes statues as well. Hit up Jeremy if he can find it. He's going to get it for you, so please check out the link in the description for the Plastic Hero Collectibles Facebook group. It's very difficult right now for me to contain my excitement because I did sell my DX17 in preparation for this one releasing, and this actually released pretty early, so very excited that I'm able to take a look at this with you guys today. But without further ado, though, let's take the plastic clamshells out of the art box and see how it arrives to you when it lands on your doorstep. Okay, hold up, but this slipcover just goes way too hard. I had to show it. I love that Maul just kind of sitting in the background looking menacing and evil. What a beautiful job from Hot Toys. We often take these for granted, so I had to show it off real quick. And I'm not going to lie to you, considering this is a standard size Hot Toys box, they actually fit a decent amount of stuff in here. And just to address something I was a little bit worried about, as you can see, there is foam above the horns on both heads. Obviously, because this isn't the DX box, it doesn't have all foam like we're used to, so I'm pretty happy to see that. And also, guys, this is the version with the red coin. I just wanted to point that out before we get started. But yeah, I cannot be more excited, guys, to take all the plastic off of everything and take a look at this figure. But without further ado, let's take all of the accessories and the figure out of the art box and take a closer look at all of the details. I think there's a really nice variety of hands with this set. As you can see, we have 8 here in my hand and 2 pre-installed on the figure, so 10 total. And as we get closer up on them, you can see there's some really nice sculpted in details to make it look like real fabric. Obviously, these are sculpted plastic. As we get close up on one of them, you can see those little tiny sculpted in details that really add to that realism. I think these look great, and from what I could see here, we really have all we need to do all the different poses we would want with Maul. Now, this I really like to see. Obviously, Maul uses his saber in many different ways in the Phantom Menace. When he's on the speeder, you see him only igniting half of it. During the Duel of Fates, the saber does get cut in half at one point, so you have the full double-bladed saber, USB powered, and you also have a half hilt USB powered, and then a standard hilt if you don't want to worry about that wiring. This is really cool. And you also get a little blade plug to put in the other side here. I don't have it in my hand right now, but it does come in the box. Really quickly, let me grab a USB so we can see how this looks lit up. So just for the purposes of this part of the video, to see the USB LED lighting a little bit better, I did turn the lighting down a little bit. As you can see, though, it lights up pretty decently. If it's darker in your display, I think this will look pretty good. I'm actually surprised that it projects onto my hand all the way to the tip because it is a LED in the hilt. It does include 2 of the regular blades and 2 of these in-motion blades, and same with the in-motion blade. It's kind of interesting that it actually makes it all the way to the tip and projects on my hand, but if I remove this, you could see it's kind of hard to catch on camera, but it is a pretty decent LED considering the price wasn't raised too much for this new feature. I will say, in my particular copy, this doesn't want to go in all the way on this side, but this side it's flush. I don't want to push it because I don't want to break the LED inside. I think maybe the LED is pushed forward just a little too much on my personal copy and it's stopping it from going in all the way. Again, I don't want to force it, but I just wanted to point that out. So it's pretty difficult to capture on camera, so you have to have it at the right angle. But as you can see, this is the red coin version here. So you do have a coin with the image of Darth Maul on it. It says Darth Maul and Galactic Empire at the bottom, and when you flip it around, it does say Star Wars on it. Not sure why Hot Toys decided to make this like the new exclusive, but I still think it's pretty cool. It reminds me of like the old Lucasfilm DVD releases, like the Revenge of the Sith, for example. I have a coin from that from many years ago, so definitely pretty neat. And since these 2 accessories are basically in the exact same scenes, I figured I'd show them together. Of course, we have the binocs here that Maul uses to seek out Qui-Gon and Anakin, and you have this little swap-out cuff here with that little communicator device that he uses to communicate with the probe droids. I think these both are very cool accessories, especially that probe droid. I just wish Maul came with more probe droids. I just had to show you guys more detail on these binocs. That weathering is beautiful and very realistic looking, like these have been through the ringer on the sands of Tatooine. Sorry they're so reflective on camera, but you could see there's rust, there's pitting, there's sand detail. You can see around the front there's a lot of weathering. It looks like rust and grime. Just really nicely done and look like they were pulled right out of the universe. this is really dope. I wanted to take a look at the robes next because as I saw the final product photos when this was released, I was a little disappointed in how the hood looked in some of the photos. It looked like it wasn't as good as the one that came with the DX16, DX17, so I hope I'm wrong about that. Getting close up on the hood here, you can see the fabric is really nice. It does have some thin wiring in the hood. You can see it does hold the pose. What I'm worried about though is how the fabric kind of drapes over the top of the horns. I hope I can get it looking good. Of course, we'll visit that in the final posing segment of the video, and I'll share my thoughts on that further. But the material is really nice. It has these pleats in it. As we open it up, you can see they kind of like accordion open. It's really nicely tailored. It feels great. I love this little hook metal clasp they use on this. Obviously, those buttons they've been using for years are awful. They break very often, so I'm glad to see that on this one. The sleeves themselves are a lot longer than I remember. You can see they kind of go all the way to the bottom almost, so that's pretty interesting. I can't comment on how this compares to the DX17 in terms of the fabric because I don't have it in hand anymore, but it does feel really nice, and I can't wait to look at it on the figure so I can see how I feel about that hood. I mentioned the probe droids earlier. As you can see, there's some weathering, like some scratched off paint there on the front, which I didn't expect. As I turn it around here, you can see there's weathering all over it, scratches, grime. I think they did a great job painting this up. Again, I don't have the DX17 anymore to compare. I think this looks similar, maybe a little bit better, but really nice details nonetheless. You do have to install the antenna here at the top, so keep that in mind. That will be in the box, and it does come on this little like clear flight pole, so you can have it standing up in your display. My one thing that I mentioned earlier, I wish he came with more, because I think he actually has 3 in the actual scene that we see these, but I get it, it will drive up the cost. You'll just have to buy them on the secondary market if you want to recreate that scene. I apologize in advance. This base is so reflective, I can't angle it towards the camera, or it literally reflects back basically all the light and makes the camera go out of focus. So this is the best I could do with this. This is obviously based on that Duel of Fate scene. This is replicating that floor. I will say this, I remember the DX17 came with like a sand topper for this base in case you wanted to have him in that Tatooine look with the speeder and or the robe. So it's a bit unfortunate they didn't also include that with this one, because he does include the droid and the robe. So a bit weird they kind of cheaped out with that. Also, I want to show there is a metal nameplate on the front. Again, very reflective. This is a massive base, by the way, guys. I'm not a huge fan of these display bases. They've done it many times with many different figures, like Neo from the original Matrix film, Marty McFly from Part 2. It's just a massive piece, so I won't be using this personally. Maybe when I get the speeder version, I'll throw the speeder on there just for stability, but it's massive. But it does fit in the DTOF, though, I will say that. And before I forget, you also get a flight pole and a waist grabber. This is one of the few figures, guys, you could use a waist grabber on and not destroy the figure, because it is all fabric, so be happy for that, because Maul is such an acrobatic character. That's always exciting to see. And last, but certainly not least, for the accessories, we have our alternate head sculpt with the open mouth. He's kind of screaming here. Guys, I gotta be honest with you, if you have the DX16, DX17, and you think that those head sculpts are better, you're just wrong. I'm sorry, guys, you're wrong. They did such a great job at kind of pushing this version forward to make it a true 2.0 in many ways, and you'll see that especially when we take a look at the figure. But number one, the face is much slimmer, more like Ray Park. That likeness comes out a lot more. Also, on the DX16, DX17, you had etched-in tattoos. As we get closer up, you could see these are not etched in. It looks amazing, guys. It looks really, really good. Another thing I'm noticing, those teeth. The paint job on the teeth is spectacular. It looks like it was pulled right off of the screen. I gotta be honest with you, these head sculpts for this new version are some of the best sculpts across any scale that I've seen for Darth Maul. Hot Toys really did a great job. I really love how this looks. The horns are sharp, as you would expect. They look great. They even got the little clay mold detail that you see from the actual prosthetics put on in the film. That's really cool. As we turn it to the side, you've got that signature Ray Park earring stud there that he left in, and George Lucas just fell in love with it, so he decided to keep it. Just a beautiful sculpt, guys, and we get closer up, we can see those eyes. The eyes tell all of the story. They look amazing. They're painted really well, and of course, if I reach my hand in there, you can see we have our PERS system, so you can move the eyes around. I like that you don't have to use the tool to adjust the eyes on this one. It does include the tool if you want to do that, but you don't have to use it, so definitely love to see that. But yes, what an amazing head sculpt, and I cannot wait for you guys to see the default head sculpt, because I think it's just as good, if not better. And here we are finally with with the Darth Maul 2.0 by Hot Toys. And I gotta be honest with you guys, right off the bat, even seeing it behind the camera, it looks way better than the previous version. It's one of those things, once you have it in hand and you have something to compare it to, you really realize the missteps that Hot Toys made back in the day and where they were able to improve. Number one, as I turn it around here, it looks much more like Ray Park, not only with the head sculpts, but also the proportions. The tailoring on the robes is much, much better. And of course, we're going to get close up on the robes and that head sculpt. But you can see the robes just look way better, way better. He looked a little too wide, I think, with the DX16, DX17. So as we get closer up though, guys, as I suspected, that default head sculpt is my favorite. It looks amazing. We'll get even closer. You could see what a beautiful likeness there to Ray Park. Spot on, I would say. I do want to point something out, though. As we pop this head sculpt off, they did ditch that magnetic system from the DX figures. You do have that same clear piece on there, so I know that will disappoint some people. I totally get it. It will be a bit more difficult to adapt these head sculpts to the older bodies if you guys kept your DX16 or 17, but keep in mind, this is the system that Hot Toys is using from now on, so we kind of have to adapt to that. I know not everybody likes it, but that's what they're going with moving forward. And before we put this sculpt back on the figure, I just want to get even closer up on it. Amazing head sculpt. I'm just gushing over this figure. I'm glazing a little bit, but I don't care. It looks great. The likeness to Ray Park is just 100% there for me. I'm so glad that they finally dialed it in. Again, those etched in tattoos were a big miss on the first one, and look how much better that looks. It looks like they adjusted the red a little bit. I know there were some concerns about how it looked in the photos. I think it's fairly accurate now. I think they did a great job. Again, the horns look great. The details on the clay work there, like on the original prosthetics, the earring, just everything looks fantastic. I'm very, very pleased. Let's pop it back on the figure though and look more at that outfit. Another thing I noticed as I put the head back on the body, I remember the DX17 because it had that rounded magnetic neck connector. It looked a little too wide. I think this really helps for the proportions. And also I think that black paint kind of blends really well with the neck. So it looks really nice. Anyways, let's take a closer look at the outfit itself. The tunic is really nicely laid on the body and the fabric choice is really good in my opinion. You can see there's like a under padded chest piece there that I think also lays really nice on the body. Some nice stitching around the neck there. I double checked on the listing on Sideshow. It just says black colored belt. This does smell very chemically, so I don't know if that means it's another artificial material or if it is pleather. It does look like pleather, but I can't confirm that. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you guys. Again, they don't mention leather-like, so maybe that's a good sign. It just says black colored, so not sure about that. One thing I do want to point out real quick, you do have two open, relaxed hands kind of pre-installed on the figure. Let me pop one off really quick because I want to address something. So something a lot of people probably noticed as they were changing out their hands later in the life cycle of the original Darth Maul is this piece under here was flaking. Again, there's no mention of this being pleather. It just says black colored part, so I'm not sure. It does look very similar to the original one. I guess only time will tell, but it does have the same smell as the belt. So hopefully that's a good sign that it's another artificial material, but I don't know for sure. Towards the bottom of the robe here, there's actually a ton of wiring and it holds really nicely. Obviously for action poses, this is going to be fantastic. So we love to see that. Again, it lays really nicely on the body, but that wiring is really going to help you get some crazy poses with like wind kicked up under it. It's going to be dope. The pants underneath here are also really nicely tailored and they look accurate to the film in my opinion. The boots themselves look really nice. I can't tell if they're the same sculpt as the original because I don't have the original in hand. They look great though, and surprisingly, though they did a great job concealing it with this type of design, they are split cut as you could see, but there is some limitation there because of this plastic that goes over the front. You could push it more on your personal copy. I'm not going to do that with this one, but they do look really nice, and the tread is weathered, which you always love to see that attention to detail. But what a great looking figure, guys. I will turn it around to the back as well so we could see more of the details on the outfit. Just a great job from Hot Toys. Again, I said this earlier, but this is definitely a worthy successor in my opinion to the original Darth Maul. But now comes the fun part. Let's throw our Darth Maul here in a few poses. I'll share my final thoughts and then we'll close out this video. I think we can all agree it's kind of mandatory in a Darth Maul video. You have to do your best to try to replicate that initial ignition of the dual saber in the Duel of Fate scene. This looks amazing. I'm so pleased with how this figure turned out. Seeing it posed up. By the way, I didn't mention, guys, because I didn't do posability in this video. It's very posable. You have ratcheted knees on the figure. The arms are fully double jointed. No restriction in this clothing whatsoever. He poses extremely well. The ankles are very strong. Like I said, there's a bit of restriction there because of the plastic going over the front, but I was able to get him kind of low enough to where I'm pretty satisfied with this pose. This is just the normal lightsaber without the wiring for the USB and everything, just to show off how that looks, but I think he looks great. I don't know, I feel like that's the money shot right there. I feel like you can set it and forget it, and that's your Darth Maul. He just looks so good in this pose. It's so iconic, so memorable. I love the Phantom Menace. I don't know about you guys, but this just makes me excited to look at this figure. I tried my best to adjust the eyes. One of the eyes might look a little bit cockeyed, but once I get a chance to put it in my display, of course I will adjust it accordingly. But man, I don't want to take him out of this pose. Okay, so as you can see, I have him in the robe here. Something I wanted to point out about the hood: you can manipulate it and get it to look close enough to the scenes on Tatooine when he has the hood up. It wants to pop up on the top of the head because of the horns. I don't know if they could have used maybe like 2% less material to make it slightly smaller, because it is a really big hood. If you watch the scenes, it actually doesn't sit very well on his head. It's constantly flowing around on his head from the wind. It doesn't look perfectly laid in any of the scenes on Tatooine, so to be fair, you can get it looking decent enough. Something I think may help is using some double-sided tape underneath the kind of those side drapes going towards the neck of the hood, just to kind of pull it down a little bit. I didn't want to force it on the horns too much because this is not my personal copy, but you could definitely get it looking decent enough. It's not a perfect hood. I definitely think it could have been a little bit better, but it's not as bad as I expected personally. And as you can see here with the binocs in his hand, I did swap out that little communicator piece on his wrist. Sitting there with the probe droid, it looks really good. Again, as I mentioned, when you look at many different scenes, the hood is never perfectly symmetrical when he's on Tatooine. It's blowing in the wind, so your idea of what the hood might look like best might be different from mine. Again, I did get it to sit decently enough on his forehead. I think that's the biggest issue, is lifting off that forehead. Something I didn't mention, along the seam line down the middle of this robe, it is fully wired, so you can pose that however you want, and there is some light wiring in the sleeves as well, so definitely a really good look. I'm surprised the hood is decent enough to where you can get it looking close enough to the scenes. And finally, this pose here, just to get some flow going in the robes, utilize that wiring. As you can see, it poses very nicely. The wiring is manipulated very easily. He looks awesome. I've got that alternate head sculpt on there screaming. This is like if he just hopped off of the bike and engaged with Qui-Gon and the hood is down. I think he looks awesome. And again, the robe is not horrible. I think it looks pretty good. There are some shortcomings with it, but overall, I think it looks pretty decent. But with that, that is going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please look forward to more coming in the near future. I very much appreciate, once again, Jeremy Casa for sending this figure out to me for the purposes of this review. Thank you again, Jeremy. Once again, guys, links in the description to check out Plastic Hero Collectibles on Facebook. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comments down below. See ya.